Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. We are officially counting down the days until our fantasy football drafts, which means it is time for weekly content. And today I'll be walking through the best values in every single round of your fantasy football draft so that you can dominate your leagues this year and win with ease. I mean, your league mates are just going to look silly. So without further ado, let's jump right into round one, which is the moneymaker. Now, of course, my first overall pick is chalk. Just like everybody else, it's Jamar Chase. But there is a player later on in round one who has better value at the pick, and that is Bijan Robinson, currently going between pick 4 and 5 at 4.9 on Sleeper. And despite a not so favorable running back schedule last year, Bijan still finished as a running back 3 with 20.1 fantasy points per game, staying healthy the entire season. Now, Bijan is a great pick in the first round for a variety of reasons, but one of them is that he has a very high floor while also still having the RB1 upside overall. Last year, Bijan had 0 games with less than 10 points, but he had 10 games with over 20 fantasy points. Now, I do not expect Bijan to keep up that pace, but it is definitely in the range of outcomes, especially with one of the easiest running back schedules in all of the NFL. I can easily see Bijan finish as the running back 1, and that's actually where I have him this year, and he could potentially even be the best player in all of fantasy football. Now, round 2 is full of very exciting wide receivers, but I'm actually going to pivot to one of the guys who has the highest ceiling in all of round 2, but also carries a lot of risk. This, of course, is Christian McCaffrey. Now, of course, we all know the elite ceiling of Christian McCaffrey, finishing running back 2, running back 1, running back 2, and running back 1 in his last 4 healthy seasons, but health is the main caveat here. But if he is healthy, you are getting the running back 1 in round 2 of your fantasy football draft, which is an absolute league winning status. And even if he isn't the running back 1, he still has very high upside week over week, especially on a team with tons of vacated targets. With the departure of Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk likely starting the year on the injury reserve list, CMC has the opportunity to soak up a ton of targets early on, and his schedule is absolutely incredible. So he could be an absolute league winner, especially here in round 2. The toughest teams he's going to face all year are going to be the ones in his division, like the Seahawks and the Rams, as well as other teams like the Buccaneers. But other than that, his schedule is pretty easy breezy. And not to mention, he has an incredible fantasy playoff schedule, but that's a little far ahead. But if you want to look into that, be my guest. Now, hopping into round 3, we have my favorite player in drafts, and that is Chase Brown. Now, the Bengals defense is an absolute dumpster fire, and we all know that, which means the offense is going to be on the field a ton, and Chase Brown has become a very pivotal player to both the passing game as well as the running game, of course. Chase Brown saw his snaps increase last year in week 9 from around 50% of snaps to 90% of snaps, and after that point, he averaged 20.3 fantasy points per game. That pace would have had him as the running back 3 overall last year if he continued that pace throughout the entire season. And with no competition in the backfield, Chase Brown is the guaranteed starter for an offense that is going to see so much field time. He is the best value in round 3 and arguably the best value in all of the fantasy football drafts. Do not, and I mean do not, miss your chance to draft this stud. Now, of course, we can't forget about wide receivers. So in round 4, we have our first wide receiver, and that is Rashee Rice. Now, before getting absolutely bent over by Patrick Mahomes, Rashee Rice was averaging 21.6 fantasy points over the first 3 weeks where he was healthy. And I mean, he is paired with one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game and is on a very high-powered offense. Now, of course, they added Worthy, which I know you keyboard warriors are going to mention, but I am not scared of a 165-pound scrawny wide receiver who did not see a single 100-yard receiving game despite not having the number 1 option in the offense. And coming off an injury, there is of course some baked in risk with Rashee Rice, but this is a guy who you have a shot at getting a wide receiver 1 in the 4th round, which is incredible value. I'm drafting him all day. Now, round 5 is where I start to get a little bit controversial. In round 5, my pick is Jameson Williams, who is currently going off the board at wide receiver 27 on Sleeper, but in my ranks is all the way up at wide receiver 20. Last year, JMO finished as a wide receiver 22, despite having that breakout towards the back end of the season and being incorporated more into the offense. We really saw him get his footing, so I see that his ADP is really his floor. And honestly, it makes no sense. And yes, there is some volatility with Ben Johnson being gone, as well as the O-line getting a little weaker, but this team has been desperate for a wide receiver 2 for so long, and Jameson Williams is fitting right in to fill that role. Now, through the last 8 weeks of the season, JMO averaged 16.2 fantasy points per game, which forecasted through an entire season would make him a very high-end wide receiver 2 for your team. That would mean 2019, he would have been around wide receiver 15 overall in points per game, similar to a guy like Drake London. And while he may be inconsistent, round 5 is the perfect opportunity to take a shot on a guy who could be a wide receiver breakout this year and give you great fantasy production, especially as your wide receiver 2 or even your flex spot. I've been drafting JMO in best ball all day, every day, and I'm going to keep doing that in redraft leagues too. And my round 6 pick is a guy who has an extremely high ceiling for a guy in the 6th, and if his cards fall right, we could be looking at a round 2 guy this time next year. This is none other than Patriots running back Trevion Henderson. Henderson is an extremely elusive back who's got speed as well as an elite pass catching running back. And on a team with an absolute dumpster fire of a wide receiver core, Henderson could actually carve himself out a role as a pass catching running back for this team very early on and see a lot of field time despite Ramondre being there. The Patriots invested the 38th pick on Henderson, meaning that he is their dude. Now, it could be a slow start to Henderson's rookie season, but I see this as a very similar situation to when Gibbs entered the league and had a few slow games where he was the RB2 before taking over as the RB1 in the back half of the year. Henderson's current ADP is running back 26. I have him up at running back 20, but I could easily see him finishing as a running back 1 if things go right. And in round 7, I have another rookie running back by the name of Caleb Johnson. Johnson is definitely not as exciting as a rookie, but in round 7, his value is undeniable. Johnson can fit in right away as the Najee Harris replacement, taking all that volume and the ground and pound attack that the Steelers love to run. And he arguably has a way higher ceiling than Najee Harris ever did with his big run capabilities. Now, his upside is capped a little bit because he's not the best pass catcher, but on a Steelers team that needs big plays desperately, Caleb could see a role very early on, and I think his production comes from those big plays. He's currently ranked as the running back 30 in ADP on Sleeper, but he is up at my running back 25, so he is a great value in round 7. And round 8 is actually the perfect round to grab some value at wide receiver, and there's actually a few guys that I like here, but my favorite is going to be Jacoby Myers. Now, yes, he's old, he's kind of boring, and he's on a not so great team, but he's been consistently underrated, right now being drafted as the wide receiver 39 after just finishing as wide receiver 19 just last year. And now he gets an upgrade at one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the entire NFL in Geno Smith, and that should help him a ton. Now, he will have some target competition with the added rookies coming in this year, and especially with the ground game being better, but considering he's an older vet that is super reliable and has great hands, I am not really worried, especially at this price tag. Now in round 9, we got a player who everyone and their mom has been talking about recently, but for the record, I've been talking about him since he was at UNC. And this guy is Josh Downs. Dog. Now, Josh Downs is currently being discounted because of his quarterback play as well as some target competition, but if you actually go look at his splits with and without Anthony Richardson last year, there's really not much of a difference. Downs' receiver, when given volume, is actually a top 15 option at wide receiver for fantasy football, such as in week 4, wide receiver 8, week 6, wide receiver 14, week 8 up at wide receiver 6, week 11 at wide receiver 11, and week 18 at wide receiver 12, in which 3 of those games were actually against elite top defenses in the league. You will now have Daniel Jones, which is actually an upgrade at quarterback for the passing game, but regardless, I think Downs will actually have enough volume to be a league winner week over week and have some boom weeks as well. His current ADP is wide receiver 48, which is absolutely nasty. I have him all the way up at wide receiver 31, so he is a must draft on all of my fantasy boards. Now, Zach Charbonnet is actually my round 10 value, and this may be a little shocking. Now, I don't think it's insane value, but Charbonnet could step in as the running back 1 for the Seahawks when we see the annual Kenneth Walker injury. And regardless, he's going to get volume anyways. He just steals it. That's what he does. Now, in my eyes, Charbonnet is a high value insurance running back who you could stash on your bench, or a guy who you can take to just give your team a little bit more upside. And if he was ever asked to come in as the running back 1 for the Seahawks, he would immediately be a top 24 running back in the NFL, and that's just a guy that you want to have. In games where Charbonnet played 80% of the snaps last year, he had 23.9 fantasy points, but that's just over 4 games, so that might be a little unfair. But if you take games where he played 70% of snaps, he averaged 19.2 fantasy points, which is in a 6-game sample size last year, which is a little bit better of a sample size. He's currently my running back 32, but at this point in the draft, you are just drafting for upside, and that's exactly what he is, one of the best upside insurance backs in the entire league. Now, surprisingly, round 11 actually has some of the best values in the entire fantasy draft, but I know this pick is going to have some of y'all in the comments. In round 11, I'm doing everything I possibly can to grab Dak Prescott. He's currently going as the quarterback 16, which is just disrespectful, especially after he was the quarterback 3 in his last healthy season, and now he's got George Pickens. I mean, come on, dog. If he's able to stay healthy, he will be undeniably a top 10 quarterback again, so being able to get him in the round 11 as the quarterback 16 is just insane value. And then you have the upside of him returning back to his near MVP caliber season, in which then he will be a top 5 option at quarterback, and just getting him in the 11th, I mean, it's nuts. He's currently my quarterback 7, which may be a little bit spicy, but I think if he's back to being fully healthy and has CD and Pickens, this guy is gonna break fantasy again. Now go ahead, comment. I know you're going to. Now in round 12, I was between 2 rookie wide receivers of Jack Besh and Kyle Williams, but I ultimately went with Kyle Williams just because he has a clearer path to production. Williams was drafted 69th overall to be the new start of the Patriots wide receiver core, and with how open it is, he definitely could step in and see some volume pretty early on. I'm not expecting him to be some fantasy superstar, but with the actual opportunity that he has, it's definitely a possibility. He is a very good dart throw at some production, especially at this point in the draft. But there are quite a few good values in this round 12, so just really do whatever you want. It's just splitting hairs at this point. But in round 13, do not do what you want to do. Take this guy, Trey Benson. Benson in his rookie year had basically zero opportunity being behind James Conner and him finally having a healthy season. But if he does come in, he will be a league winner. Last year, Benson had 2 games where he played less than 30% of the snaps, but he still put up running back 2 numbers despite basically never touching the ball. And with how often James Conner gets injured and him just being another year older, Benson could step in this season and be a league winner, especially with the opportunity in Arizona. And in round 13, Benson is easily the highest upside player, especially at this point in the draft. I wouldn't even blame you for taking him in round 12. All Benson needs is a true opportunity to take over, and he will. And for our last and final round, in round 14, I've got another quarterback for you, Bryce Young. His ceiling is not crazy, his floor isn't crazy, but in round 14, if you just need to add a quarterback at the end of your draft, he does have some reasonable upside, and he looked pretty decent at the end of the year. Will he win you your league? Probably not, but he might keep you from falling out of contention and actually allow you to stream a guy throughout injuries and bye weeks and things like that. And with that, you should know how to win your leagues. Make sure you drop a comment with your favorite pick in this video down below, and as well, make sure you let me know how dumb I am. And do not forget to subscribe for weekly videos, as well as hit that like button so I can grow my ego. Peace.